slept with hubby's friends because I wanted to explore. His revenge was cruel to say the least.
I would never forget the day my life went downhill within a blink of an eye. I thought I was having fun and exploring what I had not done before. All I wanted was to experience and venture into new things that my husband was not offering. You know, sometimes it's really bad to get married when your heart still wants to explore other things. It's like getting married when you are not even ready for commitment. My husband was very boring and always busy with work to a point that he didn't even try to make time for me. As his wife, it would always be either his work or gone to business trips that take months for him to come back. So I am young and still beautiful, so I thought, why not try what I had been missing out ever since I got married? Well, my work history is not too good, so some might know what I mean when I say some old habits die hard. If I knew better, I would have done things a different way, or I wouldn't have done anything that would jeopardize my marriage and my image. How does one deal with the most cruel and humiliating act that my husband had taken because I had done him wrong? How do I recover from this? Let me take you to what happened. Please do not judge me but advise me. So I, female, 33, and my husband Dominic, a male, 40, met at a cafe that I was working at in LA, while I was also working at a strip club during weekends and holidays. That time I was only 22, going to be turning 23 in a couple of months to come. He had come for some business meeting, if I was not mistaken, because he once told me that when we met, he was still trying to grow his architectural business since he had worked as a building planner and designer. The day we met, it wasn't a very pleasant day for me because I was not working at a cafe because I liked to. But it was the circumstances that I was facing at home. You know, since I was the only girl child who got a chance to further her studies. I was raised by a single mother who is also dealing with her own drinking problems, so I had to become an adult to her and my younger siblings. I worked at a cafe to raise more funds to pay for my tuition fees and make amends to take care of my younger siblings. So I didn't get a chance to enjoy my youth and do what my age mates did. One day he asked for my numbers, telling me that he loved my service, so he would like to get my work schedule so he would know if I was working or not. Because there was this time one of my colleagues told me that Dominic had come to the cafe when I was not at work and asked to be served by me, so when he was told that I was not working, he told them that he would go to another cafe for his coffee until I was back. Mind you, that time I was in the middle of my exams, so I had to focus on my books. He was such a charmer and a smooth talker. As time passed, I went out with him. He was a very smart man and business-minded, but what I had noticed about him was that he didn't take any *T from anyone and find out later that he was actually a Capricorn. He was smart, business-minded, funny and kind, but he had a very low temper and he was very strict. He always wanted perfection. I had thought they were playing when they say never fool a Capricorn because their revenge is always wrath and cruel. I learned that the hard way. One thing that I can advise people on is that if you are dating a Capricorn while you are a Gemini, just prepared that your relationship will always have very serious ups and downs because a Gemini has their own short temper and Capricorn also, but the Capricorn always wants to have an upper hand. They lead, so as the Gemini you will have to understand that and thread carefully. Because once you do them wrong, you would have poured gas or paraffin on an already blazing devil's fire. Ask me, I know how it's like to date and even get married to a Capricorn while you are a Gemini. So I am talking from experience. Anyway, Dominic was really romantic and loving. He knew how to treat a woman like a queen. So we continued going out. He showered me with so much love and gifts. The way I was falling harder and harder for him every day, I eventually found myself like I was possessive over him or obsessed, I don't know. I would get angry if he was not answering my calls, or he would come to have one of his meetings in a cafe with a woman. Was I being obsessive or possessive over the poor guy? Time passed and we started dating. He had confessed his feelings for me, but I kept turning him down and preferred having only a friendship relationship because I had thought I was not the type of girl he would want to be with. 2. I was afraid of telling him about my job as a stripper and sex worker to get money. I just couldn't tell him what I was doing for a living except for the fact that I was working at a cafe, which he knew since we first met there. I was ashamed of my second job, and on the other hand I had fallen for the guy, but I was doubting myself. After a year of dating, he proposed and we got married. My mother was also okay. Dominic had gotten her some help to take out the addiction of alcohol she had, and he was taking good care of my siblings. I wouldn't have to ask for me. I mean, he was doing enough for me and my family, but one thing I knew was that I didn't know if I loved him deeply or I just loved the benefits he was coming with. I had graduated before we got married and the guy wanted to start building his own empire, meaning he wanted to have children that would take over when he either retires or passes on. Time passed and I had told myself that I would leave the strip club and at least focus on my new venture business that my husband had helped me start. I had started a marketing business, which was advertising or promoting his architectural business, which grew over time from promoting my husband's business to promoting for bigger companies. I loved the change that was happening, being independent, having to enjoy my own hard-earned money while I knew that my family was well taken care of. It was a breath of fresh air, most especially when you know that your mother had become the person who had always prayed for her to be. As my business was doing well, I had quitted being a stripper and a sex worker. Well, I quitted when I had started dating Dominic for a couple of months. His love, attention and affection couldn't let me continue with the job, so I had to change for him, well, not for him only but also for myself to grow. So when I was working at a strip club, I had gotten regular clients who would just call me to ask for my service in exchange for money, of course. They were very helpful during that time, but when I got into a relationship with Dominic and I had seen that it was getting serious, I had to cut all the deals we had off and delete their contacts because I didn't want to put my first serious relationship in jeopardy. About a couple of months later, I started getting sick so much to a point that even my husband got worried and decided to take me to the doctor because I was losing weight and had no energy to even satisfy my husband's needs as I had to. That sickness was stressing me out because I had thought of the worst, like my husband would cheat or find someone else better, who would fulfill his desires and bear him a child, or he would divorce me because he wouldn't be able to keep up with a sick person. But he stayed around and even took some months off work to take care of me. I would appreciate that till I take my last breath. So the doctor had admitted me, saying my blood level was too low, I was not eating well enough, which was too risky especially in the condition I was in. My husband was confused about the condition the doctor was talking about, so was I. So he furthered his explanation by telling us that we were pregnant. Well, I was pregnant. I was happy, but my husband was happier and I loved seeing him so happy. Since then he started being fussy over me, making sure I was eating well and I was taking care of myself, but he was overdoing it, though I couldn't complain. I had a good support system that my husband was giving me. Not to mention the love he showered me with, it was breathtakingly refreshing. I don't really know what had gone wrong with him like that. I guess it was selfishness and greed, I don't know. As much as our intimate moments were on the level that satisfied me, but he loved me, and I should have embraced that. And what did I do? I betrayed him in a most painful and cruel way. A year later I had given birth to a very cute and beautiful baby girl. Was I not happy? I was ecstatic, but I couldn't say the same with my husband because he had wanted and hoped for a boy. So a year after our daughter was born, he became distant, going to work earlier than he used to and coming back late. Our marriage was no longer the same and it was breaking my heart because he was very much in love and supportive during the whole pregnancy journey, but when the child was born, he stuck around for 6 months, then he started his acts. The more Dominic was acting offish and absent to our daughter and I, the more I kept having thoughts about him. He was no longer the loving, romantic, kind and caring husband that I had married. Wasn't he the one who had been pestering me about starting our own family, building his empire and all that? But when the baby was born, he changed. And he changed for the worst. Mind you, the child looked so much like him, but that didn't give him any motivation to show some love and kindness to his child. He was treating me like I was cheating on him or I had cheated on him. Time passed and I saw no change in Dominic's behavior, but it was getting worse each day. I couldn't take it anymore, it was tearing me apart because I didn't know what his problem was, and if I tried to communicate with him about it, he would say there was no problem and he loved our daughter. His words were saying something else while his actions were saying another thing, so what he was saying versus what he was doing was not colliding even a little. So I took my child to my mother's house. I was glad that my mother had fully recovered from her alcohol addiction and he had become a mother we had always wished for, to me and my siblings, and he showed so much love to my daughter, which was another thing I was grateful for. So I left my baby girl for a full 2 months, telling my mother that I wanted to fix my marriage with Dominic and plead with him to accept that he had a chance to have a child even if she wasn't what he had expected, but she was still his child, his blood and semen. During my efforts to fix our marriage, the man of the house didn't seem to change. Yes, he would tell me that he loved me, but what about our daughter? What he was doing to me and our daughter was slowly finishing the love I had for him. What is love exactly if you are not showing it, but keep saying it like it's a chorus in your favorite song? How can a person say they love you, but they can't love their own seed? It was really confusing and heartbreaking because if I were to choose between my husband and our daughter, I would definitely choose our daughter because his love that he said he had for us was not enough. In fact, it was just lousy and useless words because his actions were saying a different thing. One day he had invited his friends for a break to celebrate his success in getting a client in Africa. I was proud of him and his achievements. I won't lie, he had worked very hard to get that contract and he eventually did through his hard work and dedication. So as the good wife that I was, I helped him prepare for the break that he was hosting. He had asked me to help him because he first wanted to celebrate with his friends, then invite the family later on when the contract was confirmed and signed. I helped him with everything that he needed. My daughter was still with my mother at that time. So when his friends came, I didn't know all of his friends, I only knew a few. I got the shock of my life. 2 of his friends were my clients back then when I was working at a strip club. One of them used to ask me for my intimate service and the other would come to the strip club for the dance only. I just couldn't believe how small the world was and I got uncomfortable at the fact that they might tell my husband about my past with them. Another thing I wouldn't know is that they were my husband's friends because they were not at our wedding celebration. Worst part was that both of them had asked for my service 2 weeks before my wedding with Dominic. They had asked me on different days and I wouldn't have guessed that they were somehow friends. Yes, I am not proud of what I had done to my husband because he had shown me nothing but true love and the guys had promised to give me good money and they wanted a good service before they would go on a business trip. That was what they told me. If I knew that they were my husband's friends, I wouldn't have agreed to commit adultery 2 weeks before I got married. Throughout the whole celebration I was so uncomfortable. The lusting eyes that the guys were giving made me more uncomfortable. I didn't know how these guys would act when they got drunk because they were drinking like it was their last time, or what they would tell Dominic. You know how some guys are. And according to what I had seen, it looked like the whole squad knew that the 2 guys were womanizers. The other one liked going to strip clubs while the other one loved sex. So it was scary. I was not even myself, but luckily no one noticed. About a month later, I received a call from Tom, one of Dominic's friends, the one who loved sex. I was surprised because he hadn't called me ever since the day we last saw each other before my wedding. He asked me to meet him at a certain hotel for a quick one, of which I bluntly refused and reminded him that I was no longer into that life and I was happily married. I said that to get him off my back and hoped that maybe he would get the message even though I was not really happy. It had been quite some time since things had been tense in my matrimonial house. My husband was acting fishy, like there was something he was hiding from me. At first I had thought it was work pressure, but things got worse. He was suddenly moody, his sex drive was no longer the same. As much as he acted like he didn't love our daughter or even try to play with her, that was a small thing compared to how he was acting towards me alone. So Tom just laughed at me when I told him that I was happily married, and he told me that if I was happily married, I would have acted like a happy person when they had come to Dominic's celebratory break. I first didn't understand what he was trying to imply, but I somehow remembered that he was the only client that knew me at my happiest or when I was pretending to be happy. He told me to know my worth and if the battle that I was trying to win with Dominic was worth it, and how long would I keep fighting for something and someone who couldn't even steal a glance at me when they were in my house. What he was saying was true, but I couldn't give him that satisfaction just because my husband had changed on me. I still had faith that he would be back to be the person he was when we first started dating. My marketing company on the other side was doing well. It was the best distraction I had. Time passed, I decided to start going out, to live a little, I had never got time to all that and enjoy my money because I had to think of the situation that I was facing at home. So I started by going to the mall to do some shopping, hoping that it would cheer me up, just like all the girls who say shopping was a great therapy, but for me it wasn't, I won't lie. My husband knew that I was the lover of affection and intimacy, but the way he was acting made me somehow feel frustrated and in so much desire for intimacy. Though I didn't want to do that to my husband because it was going to jeopardize my marriage, I couldn't hold myself anymore, to the point that I would sometimes help myself. So when I went shopping, I bought a lot of lingerie, hoping that they would bring at least a small spark to my husband's eyes when he sees me wearing a sexy number. So when I got home, I prepared his favorite dish. Luckily, I had gotten my daughter a nanny because of work, and I was kind of tired of burdening my mother with my problems. My husband came back earlier than expected that day. The nanny and my daughter were at my mother's house, so I tried acting like a good wife and welcomed my husband with a kiss and asked him to go take a quick shower because we needed to talk. Luckily, he complied and did as instructed. While I was left to finish up everything, I made sure to wear something sexy that would make him want to eat me in an instant. When he came back from taking a shower, he came down the stairs and asked what the occasion was and where I was going, since I was wearing a dress that he had not seen before. I told him that I had wanted to spend quality time with him and tried addressing the issue that we were facing in our marriage. But the guy just dismissed my concerns and changed the topic. I asked him to at least notice me as his wife. I then tried seducing him, but he was not having it. He complained about being tired, and what surprised me that day was that he asked where Chrissy, our daughter, was. I knew he didn't ask that because he wanted to ask, but it was because he wanted to dismiss what I was trying to do and address it with him. So I told him that our daughter was at my mother's house. He just took the car keys and told me that a child shouldn't be separated from their mother because that would break the connection and the bond we had, so he was going to fetch her. I didn't really understand the sudden love he had for our daughter, but somehow my heart was happy and at ease to see him considering our daughter's feelings. I had hopes that maybe we would get through everything, but who was I fooling? He left me there with a lingerie on. He didn't even try to at least compliment or show me some affection. He just remembered that he had a daughter that he had been absent with for a year. My heart was broken and I was so thirsty and hungry for some intimacy, so I found myself calling Tom with the hope that he was available. Luckily, he had invited me to their private party because I had told him that I was bored and I needed some company. I didn't even waste any time. I just changed only the dress that I was wearing, then went to the location that Tom had sent. I didn't care if my husband would come back home and not find me. All I was thinking about was the salt and desire for affection that I had been craving for. When I got there, Tom welcomed me and introduced me as his fun girl, which came as a huge shock to me because I didn't remember forming any fun relationship with Tom, but I dismissed that. But maybe we did have a fun relationship, which happened a long time ago. So the night went on, and at that party, I noticed a few of Dominic's friends. Someone suggested that we all play spin the bottle, where one would either kiss the person the bottle would be pointed to or you would have a shot of vodka. That game was fun and all. I had kissed 3 of Dominic's friends, including Tom. As the game was getting heated, someone changed it and told us to play truth or dare. I tried containing myself by choosing truths, but Tom asked if I was truly happy and sexually satisfied in my marriage. That question caught me by surprise because I didn't know how to answer, and I couldn't lie because they would see that I was lying. I was getting uncomfortable, so I changed the answer I had given them and chose dare. Tom then dared me to go to one of the rooms in the house with a guy called Kenny for 15 minutes. He looked like he had been craving for me the whole night. I was resistant at first because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in that room, but I eventually went with the guy. When we got there, the guy started touching me. Mind you, I was also tipsy, so the alcohol was playing its role on my body, so it reacted to his touch and smooth words he kept saying. Within a blink of an eye, I found myself going down with the guy. My mind had flushed down any thoughts of my marriage problems and my husband. I was enjoying the moment. My mind took me back to where and who I was before getting married and having a whole family. Not knowing that the room we were in actually had cameras, I was so caught up in a moment to a point that I didn't notice anything, plus the alcohol was doing its work. The game went on until late, and the real fun started when everyone was dancing. I was really sloshed to a point that I found myself dancing like a stripper on top of the table. I did the dance for 3 of the guys, who included Tom, Kenny, and the one that used to come to the strip club for my dance. I was letting loose and cared less. Little did I know that they were actually my husband's friends. Well, I knew the 2, but I didn't know about Kenny. So as I was busy dancing, I told the guys to follow me to the private room. My stripping habits had come back on full mode, and we were all drunk, so I commanded them to follow me to the room and they complied. When we got there, we started our little party. I danced for them and seduced them to a point that Tom and Kenny started touching me, and boom, we were having a threesome. I was enjoying the way that they were touching me and making me feel good. I don't remember where the other guy had gone and I didn't care, so I continued with the fun I was having with two of these guys. We did a lot the previous night. We were all sloshed to a point that I couldn't remember everything that had taken place in the private room, though I remembered bits of what had happened. I woke up in the morning with a very serious hangover headache. When I looked at myself, I saw that I was not wearing anything. My heart started beating, thinking of the worst and thinking of how stupid I was for putting my marriage in jeopardy. I had committed adultery, something I had vowed to myself to never do again. I was so scared, thoughts were racing in my head. I couldn't help but feel guilty of what I had done, and there was no undoing it. As I was busy panicking, Tom came into the room with a cup of coffee and painkillers to kill the hangover headache. As much as I wanted to appreciate his kind gesture, my heart and my mind didn't allow me to. It was on its own dimension and a very dark one. I just couldn't stay there anymore, so I only took the painkillers and drank them before rushing home. When I got home, I found my husband busy with his drawings. He was doing a very good job and I was really proud of his accomplishments. I greeted him and he told me that Chrissy was sleeping, in a very cold tone. I knew I was in deep *T because I didn't even notify him about my sudden departure. It was something that came to mind at the last minute. I tried apologizing to him for leaving the house and not tell him where I was going. Instead of saying that maybe it's okay, he just gave me an answer. He was as cold as ice. Weeks later, I had been living in fear and thought that my husband was seeing through me what I had done. I felt like the abomination that I had done was written all over me, and it didn't help with the guilt I was feeling. During those weeks, my husband suddenly decided that he was moving out of the house. When I asked him why he was doing that, he told me that it was for the best, not only for him but for myself also. I didn't understand his lame and lousy excuse, so I fought with him about moving. After the whole begging and throwing tantrums that I did thinking he would change his mind, the guy continued with his plans and moved out of the house. I knew there and then that my marriage was hanging on a very high and dangerous cliff. You know, when you get that feeling that tells you that everything you had worked hard for was about to go south instead of north side. That was what I had felt, and I couldn't even blame anyone for it. About a week after he had moved out, a delivery guy had come to the house, stating that he had come to deliver the parcel. When I asked who had sent it, he told me what all other delivery guys usually say, "I don't know ma'am, I am just a delivery guy." My conscience told me that maybe it was something from my business clients. Little did I know that it was actually divorce papers and another paper that stated that Dominic was taking full custody of Chrissy. I thought I was going crazy, like my mind was about to burst like a bomb. I couldn't believe why Dominic would just decide to send me such things. Why couldn't he sit down with me and talk like married and matured parents? But he went there and filed for a divorce plus full custody of the very same daughter he had neglected for a year. I couldn't let him win just like that. If he wanted to go, he should have told me, but not take my daughter. I called our family and asked for an urgent meeting with Dominic because everything was going through our lawyers. Luckily, the week didn't end and the lawyer had confirmed that we would meet in the next 3 days. So when we got there, I asked Dominic why he was divorcing me and why he wanted to take full custody of my child. The answers he gave me were more than enough to make me depressed and think of the worst of myself. He told me that he knew that I had cheated on him with 3 of his friends, and I didn't start there because he also found out that I had cheated again 2 weeks before our wedding day. He furthered by saying that he knew about my past job and that the cafe job was just a front job for me. I didn't understand where he had taken all that information. My mind had thought that maybe Tom might have told him. But I found out that he didn't. Dominic had found all of that by himself, and his trusted friends had told me that I had gone to the private party that they had hosted and Tom introduced me as his fun girl. I had no comeback when he said, so I opted to just humble myself and apologize, hoping that we would maybe try and work things out for the sake of our daughter. He was not having. He was so furious even the veins were coming through his temple. I had seen Dominic angry, but the way he was angry that time made me scared and regret the things I had done. I know I should have been honest with him from the get-go, but I decided to keep everything to myself, and when the old me got unleashed I couldn't control it. And forgot that I was no longer under the pressure of my family and I was a married woman. But what did I do? I broke the vows that I had made in front of our families, friends and God, and there was nothing I could have done to save my marriage. I tried pleading with Dominic to at least have mercy and not take my daughter away, but the guy just told us that he was done talking and the call he would like to receive would be the call that tells him that I had signed the papers. I couldn't let him win, I couldn't go back to being the person I was before I found Dominic, so I tried fighting for what was mine. During my efforts of trying to fight for my daughter, Dominic did the worst thing possible. He had gone to one of the gossip journalists and told them that he had taken his company out of my marketing company, he would no longer use my company for his business because I was untrustworthy and an unreliable person. He furthered his statement by saying that my marketing company is just a front to get more clients, but my real self was a body seller, a stripper, and a mother to the daughter that I would always take to my mother's place so I would have time to satisfy my clients. I couldn't believe that the guy I had loved and fought so hard for him to notice me as his wife would just go to journalists and tarnish my name just like that. After that, I lost so many clients to a point that I didn't even know how and where I would start and pick up the pieces that the person I had once loved had scattered. You know, when a person says they were drowning in deep muddy waters. I was that person. I was drowning in muddy water and I couldn't swim. I resorted to finding closure in alcohol. I became what my mother was. At that time I understood why my mother was an alcoholic. My life was down and out. I had lost the only person who showered me with love and care and gave me a very beautiful daughter. Now I had lost that daughter plus something that was so dear in my heart, my company. I was really depressed and wished to just go far away where there were no troubles and sorrows. 6 months later, my mother told me to stop having a pity party because it will not bring back the things that I had lost, including my daughter, but instead it would take me straight to the morgue, and when that happens, I would not be able to fight nor see my daughter ever again. Those words made me think again about life, so I took the money that I had saved from my company and the one I had got when I got divorced and used it to fix myself. I went to the rehabilitation center for 6 months, while attending AA meetings when I was inside. By the time I came out, I was a whole new person. I had discovered what my worth was and what I wanted. I started by asking for at least a joint custody of my daughter, which I got by the grace of God. I made peace with Dominic even though he was still disappointed in me, but we became civil parents for the sake of our daughter. I then started another social media marketing and a non-profit organization for women who were once in my shoes. I am happy with the changes in my life. Everything that happened didn't only break me, but they groomed me to be the better version of myself and be able to help others who are like me. As I have mentioned that I do not need or condone any judgment, I am still ashamed of my past. Please give me guides on how I should have done things. If there is anyone who was once like me, how did you come out of the situation without losing your life partner?
Fairy tales. Growing up as a kid, I always loved fairy tales. I hoped that I would one day meet a prince that would sweep me off my feet and take care of all the bills and everything so I wouldn't have to lift a finger. That came true for me. I had such a good life, and I messed it up because I wanted a few minutes of fun. I cheated on someone who cared about me so much and tried so hard for me. I know you're probably going to be wondering what I'm rambling about, so I apologize. I'm going to start from the beginning so you understand me. I cheated on my husband with his bodyguard, and of course, karma came back for me. My husband absolutely destroyed me in court, and I got nothing. Now I'm back to square one. I fought so hard to leave the slums, and I honestly cannot believe that I am back here again, struggling and living from hand to mouth and surviving on food stamps. My name is Melissa, and I am a 29-year-old woman. I was married to Justin, a 29-year-old man. We live in the US, and we were married for about a year. We have 2 children, twins who I'll call 7 and Light for the sake of privacy. They're both 8-year-old, and I love them immensely, but they've always been more attached to their dad. I remember when I first met Justin, and it was at his grandfather's birthday. I was 19 on the verge of becoming 20. Entering that stunning place, I was blown away. My dad worked as a driver for Justin's family, and he got this unexpected invite to Justin's grandpa's big birthday bash. The whole thing was super fancy, with everything dripping in luxury. Looking around at all the fancy stuff, that's when I spotted Justin. He wasn't hard to notice, dressed to the nines and practically radiating wealth vibes. As everyone mixed and mingled, here comes Justin, strolling over in his fancy clothes. I was honestly shocked. Someone from his world talking to someone like me with my background? Surrounded by people clamoring for his attention, he went out of his way to chat with a girl like me, from a less well-off family. His move felt real. a bit of kindness in a sea of extravagance. Back then, I had no clue that this moment was just the start of something way beyond our different lives. As the night went on, Justin's friendly vibe pulled me in even more. Even though everything around us was super fancy, he seemed actually interested in getting to know me. We maneuvered through the crowd of dressed-up folks, and he led me outside, away from all the bright lights of the party. Underneath the huge night sky, Justin started talking about stars, making it feel like they were old pals. It was kind of surreal, just standing there in the quiet, far from all the fancy stuff going on inside. Surprisingly, Justin, who you'd think would be all high and mighty, decided to give me a crash course on how to act all proper. He could tell I was feeling a bit awkward in this world of rich people, so he took the time to teach me how to handle myself. From eating at a fancy table to chatting without making a fool of myself, Justin wanted to make sure I didn't stick out like a sore thumb. While he shared his tips, I couldn't help but appreciate how genuine he was in trying to bridge the gap between our lives. That night was way beyond what I could have imagined, not just because of all the fancy stuff, but because I unexpectedly connected with someone who looked past our different backgrounds. As I was about to leave the fancy birthday party, Justin smoothly asked for my number, saying he'd keep in touch. A few days later, he messaged me, asking if I wanted to go out. I was curious, but a bit cautious, wondering what he was up to. When we met up, Justin explained he just wanted to be friends. I agreed, and our first hangout was at this super posh restaurant, way fancier than any place I'd been. The fancy vibes were a bit overwhelming. During the night, we chatted about what we liked and didn't like, and Justin, being the friendly guy he is, shared more tips on how to handle fancy situations. It was kind of funny, but he wanted to make sure I didn't feel out of place. Despite the swanky setting, we connected over real conversations and shared experiences. I was impressed not just by the fancy stuff, but by how Justin tried to make our worlds meet. It turned out to be a night filled with laughs, learning, and unexpected friendship. I immensely enjoyed it. On our second date, Justin had this idea that since he'd already shown me his fancy world, I should show him what it's like in my neck of the woods. So we spent the day chowing down on street food and doing all sorts of things that I was pretty sure he'd never be caught dead doing because he's so posh. It was a riot seeing his face trying out street eats, stuff way different from his usual high-class meals. We hit up lively markets, did some random activities, and Justin found himself in situations that were far from his usual polished routine. The whole day turned into a mix of laughs and spontaneous experiences. One highlight was me teaching him how to skate. Picture this fancy guy wobbling around, determined to get the hang of it. Hilarious and kinda cute, to be honest. It felt like we were breaking out of our usual routines, finding joy in the simple stuff. By the end of our day, we'd shared a bunch of laughs and got to understand each other a bit more. Our journey from that fancy party to officially dating happened crazy fast. Like, seriously wild. A guy from the rich side and a girl from the not-so-rich side getting together? Who saw that coming? But love does this funny thing where it doesn't care about backgrounds. And that's exactly what happened with Justin and me. Sure, his parents weren't thrilled about us being a thing. Our different backgrounds didn't sit right with them, given their high-class status. But despite their concerns, there wasn't much they could do to change the fact that Justin loved me, and I loved him right back. Our relationship turned into a roller coaster of emotions, from the excitement of being with someone so different to dealing with the challenges of our totally opposite worlds. Even though Justin's parents weren't exactly on board, our connection was real and strong. It wasn't about money or where we came from. It was about two people who genuinely cared for each other, ready to face the complications that came with our different backgrounds. Less than a year into our relationship, Justin and I found ourselves facing an unexpected twist. I was pregnant. It hit us like a ton of bricks, and the whole situation felt surreal. I was overwhelmed with a mix of emotions, feeling a bit crazy and not knowing what to do. One day I just broke down. I was scared and had this nagging fear that Justin might bail on me. But he didn't. Picture this, me in tears in the bathroom and Justin walks in, genuinely concerned. When he found out it was because I discovered I was pregnant, he didn't freak out. Instead, he laughed a little, gave me some words of encouragement, and reassured me that we'd face it together. In that vulnerable moment, Justin's support became a lifeline. We were scared, no doubt about it. Becoming first-time parents is no joke. But the fear didn't matter because we were in it together. Justin, driven by his own experiences of emotional absence from his parents, wanted to break that cycle. He was determined to be there for our kids in ways his parents hadn't been for him. Of course, when his parents found out about the pregnancy, they weren't exactly thrilled. They accused me of trapping Justin, but he didn't let their negativity get to him. When our twins, Seven and Light, finally arrived, it was a mix of joy and chaos. Early parenthood hit us hard sleepless nights, non-stop diaper changes, and a constant juggling act. But holding our little ones made it all worthwhile. Let's be real, keeping up with two tiny humans wasn't a walk in the park. Thankfully, Justin's parents stepped in to help. Despite their initial hesitations about me, they couldn't resist falling for their grandkids. Their support became a lifeline during those exhausting days when coffee was our best friend. It wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. Parenting brought its own set of challenges, and trying to figure it all out with limited sleep was tough. But having Justin's parents around, ready to lend a hand and share their know-how, made a world of difference. As Seven and Light grew, Justin's parents stayed involved, becoming a big part of their lives. Despite the rocky start, the love they had for their grandkids helped us a lot. Jump ahead a few years, and the twins were growing up fast, almost hitting 6. I was getting closer to 28, same as Justin. Life had changed a lot since those early days. Justin had been a rock star partner and dad. He didn't just lift me out of the tough times, he took care of everything. Bills, responsibilities, you name it. Even though I had a solid education, I hadn't jumped into a job. Instead, I embraced being a full-time mom while Justin held down the fort. Getting used to the perks of a comfortable life took some time, but Justin's support made the whole transition smoother. I went from struggling to pay the bills to having some room to breathe. Justin must have decided that it was finally time to pop the question, because he took me out of a picnic and proposed to me. I was ecstatic and happy, even though I loved marriages. I had never really pushed for Justin to pop the question because I knew it was something that took time. Justin and I were all in for planning our wedding, and the kids, Seven and Light, were over the moon about it. Their excitement added a special touch to the whole process. But not gonna lie, things got a bit tricky with Justin's parents. Despite the years gone by, they still held a grudge. They weren't exactly thrilled about me, calling me a gold digger and all that. When they heard about our wedding plans, they were pretty mad. Eventually, though, they simmered down a bit. Maybe the sight of us as a family helped. My parents, on the other hand, were all for it. They liked Justin, saw the love we had, and were totally on board. Their support made the wedding planning way smoother. At first, Justin and I imagined a simple wedding, low-key and cozy. But his parents had different ideas. Being all about status, they insisted on something big. So we landed on a compromise, a destination wedding. Planning that shindig was a whole adventure. We had to find a spot that pleased Justin's parents, but still felt right for us. The venue, the guest list, and all those cultural bits needed careful thought. When it came to our bachelor and bachelorette parties, we were on the same page. Separate parties, no craziness. We'd seen some friends go all out on their last night of freedom, and we wanted to keep it in check. Justin's party had the kids around, so no wild stuff there. He's a loyal guy, and the idea of risking our relationship for a night of chaos didn't sit well with him. Plus, with Seven and Light in the mix, he knew they'd spill the beans on anything off-kilter. For my bachelorette party, things took a different turn. Since we didn't have daughters and Justin was a bit protective, he suggested taking his male bodyguard along. At first, I thought it was a bit odd and checked in with the bridesmaids. But since our plan was more about girly fun and far from anything wild, we figured it'd be fine, or so we thought. So there we were with Marco, Justin's tall and good-looking bodyguard, who, despite looking like a model, was known for being more than just eye candy. He could handle his security gig like a pro. We kicked off my bachelorette's party early in the day. We started with the usual stuff: spa time, a bit of shopping, just some regular girl fun. It was a great day, with a few drinks thrown into the mix. But as the night rolled in, the girls and I, carried away by the idea that it was our last night of freedom, thought, why not spice things up a bit? Yeah, looking back, I can admit it was a bit of a silly move. But in the moment, excitement and a couple of drinks got the better of me. Now, I had this weird belief that promising not to cheat on Justin was some sort of magical shield against doing anything foolish. So, in this slightly tipsy state, the girls and I cooked up a plan to hit a strip club. The catch? We couldn't ditch Marco, our ever-watchful bodyguard. So, in a playful moment, we made him swear to keep our little adventure a secret from Justin. Marco, finding it amusing, went along with it and promised to zip his lips. Off we went to the strip club, chasing a bit of spontaneity on what was supposed to be a night celebrating the upcoming wedding. In the middle of the strip club fun, we decided to amp it up and booked a private room. We kicked off keeping things chill, just soaking in the vibe. But as the drinks kept coming, we all started letting loose. In the midst of the party, I couldn't help but notice Marco more. He was looking extra handsome, and this sneaky thought crossed my mind. Would he spill the beans to Justin if something went down? At first, I tried to shake off those thoughts, blaming it on the booze messing with my head. But as the night rolled on and the alcohol took over, those reservations faded away. In the heat of the moment, I found myself kissing Marco. It was a slip, a decision I'd later regret, but in the haze of the night, I suggested we continue later, acknowledging that I'd crossed a line. And after the strip club adventure, we headed back to the hotel. The reality of what happened hit me, and my earlier promises felt like a distant memory. Back in the hotel room, things took another unexpected turn. Marco sneaked in, and lines that should have stayed put got crossed. What followed was an intimate encounter, a result of choices made under the influence and the thrill of the moment. The morning after that crazy night, I was hit with a huge wave of horror. The truth smacked me. I'd messed up big time, cheated on Justin, and broken his trust. The guilt weighed on me, and I was drowning in questions. What was I going to do? How could I face Justin, the guy I was about to marry? At first, I freaked out about Justin finding out. I figured my friends were just as hammered as me and probably wouldn't remember much. Plus, Justin didn't really like my friends, so I was banking on him not taking their word for anything. In a twisted way, I tried convincing myself that the messed up details of that night would fade away in a boozy blur. Oddly enough, Marco, not as bothered as I was, started spinning this story that it wasn't entirely our fault. He downplayed the whole mess, blaming it on the mix of booze and spontaneity. Call it stupidity or whatever. But somehow, I started buying into his excuses. It was a twisted way to cope, a messed up justification for something that should have never gone down. As the wedding date inched closer, panic set in. The idea of confessing to Justin seemed impossible. Spilling the beans about cheating right before our vows? No way. I couldn't bring myself to wreck Justin's view of our relationship on the brink of our wedding. So I made the stupid decision to keep it all locked up. I told Marco how whatever happened between us needed to stay in the past. It was a feeble attempt to draw lines, a desperate move to regain some control over a situation that had spiraled out of control. But of course, that was impossible. Our wedding was a real spectacle, all grand and fancy. The kids couldn't stop talking about it for days. It was a happy time, and the memories stuck with us, creating this warm glow around our new family. In the midst of all this, Marco somehow convinced me to keep our secret thing going, promising that Justin would never catch on. I knew it was a dumb move, but I went along with it. Looking back, I can't believe what I was thinking. A few months into our marriage, Marco and I started this affair. After our honeymoon, we slipped into this routine of deceit. The kids loved every bit of the honeymoon, as said it was their second favorite after the wedding. Behind the scenes, though, I was caught up in a mess of lies. I began making up stories to fool Justin. I'd come up with scenarios that supposedly required Marco as a bodyguard, all while secretly heading to hotels under the pretense of needing security when, in reality, it was for some secretive rendezvous. The whole charade went on for months, creating a complex web of lies that was tearing at the seams of our marriage. The guilt and inner struggle got worse each day. Playing this risky game of deception, the trust holding our marriage together started to crumble. The appeal of secrecy and the excitement of forbidden moments clouded my judgment, blinding me to the potential fallout of my actions. While our family looked perfect from the outside with the big wedding and happy honeymoon, Underneath, I was a disloyal and deceitful wife lying to my husband. The stark difference between the public image and our private reality created a confusing conflict that I had a hard time making sense of. Life can be unpredictable, you know? That saying about things coming to an end eventually and karma hitting back hard? Well, they hit me like a ton of bricks. So picture this. It's a day after one of my secret hangouts with Marco. We roll up to the house, Marco in the front with the driver, and me in the back as usual. We park, and as I'm about to head inside, a message from Justin pops up on my phone. I open it, and it's a video. I don't play it. Instead, I think I'll just ask Justin about it since we're both home. But here's the crazy part. The moment we step out of the car, bam, Marco gets arrested. Turns out he's slapped with theft charges. I'm standing there in shock because I know Marco wouldn't steal anything. It has to be a setup, but I'm clueless about who would pull such a stunt. The cops fill me in, explaining that some diamonds disappeared from our place, and when they searched Marco's stuff, there they were, carefully hidden. I'm flabbergasted, and there's nothing I can do. The police haul Marco away, but before he goes, I promise him I'll get him a lawyer. Now, here's where it got worse. I'm pretty sure Justin's pulling the strings behind this because he's the only one with enough authority in the house to do that. So I march inside to confront him and get some answers. So, after Marco gets hauled off by the police, I head into the house feeling a mix of shock and confusion. Why on earth would Justin go after Marco like that? I know Marco isn't the stealing type, so there has to be some hidden motive in Justin's move. Justin, my usually sweet and kind husband, is also capable of being remarkably ruthless. Imagine me wandering through the house, noticing that the kids are nowhere to be found. I go on a little hunt for Justin and eventually stumble upon him in the study. I inquire about the kids, and he calmly informs me they're at his parents' place, which isn't unusual. The kids often spend time there. He then asks me if I watched the video he sent, and I admit I haven't. I proceed to question him about why he decided to have Marco arrested. In a departure from his usual straightforwardness, Justin suggests that I watch the video for answers. It catches me off guard because Justin isn't typically cryptic or mysterious. Intrigued and somewhat apprehensive, I pull out my phone to check out the video. As I nervously opened my phone to watch the video, I tapped on it, feeling a mix of curiosity and dread. The video starts off a bit dark, but then it becomes clear, revealing a scene that hits me like a ton of bricks. Me kissing Marco from that messed up night at the strip club. I was shocked, lost for words, trying to wrap my head around how Justin got his hands on this video and what exactly he knows. Questions flooded my mind. Where did Justin find this video, and what's the extent of his knowledge? In the midst of my shock, I was frantically brainstorming ways to fix the mess in my marriage. I know divorce might be on the table, but I was desperately hoping there was a way to patch things up. The big unknown is what Justin knows. Does he only know about that one regrettable night at the strip club? Or is he aware of my ongoing thing with Marco? It's a crucial factor, and the realization that Justin might be onto my infidelity sends my mind into overdrive. I was torn between confessing everything and bracing for the consequences, or downplaying the strip club incident as a drunken mistake. If Justin only knows about the night at the strip club, then I could tell him I was just drunk and beg his forgiveness. But if he knows about the secret affair, then there's no saving me. Tears well up in my eyes as Justin, cool and collected, silently watches my emotional turmoil. He shows no emotion on his face, and I wonder what he's thinking. In the middle of my breakdown, recalling the simple advice not to put all your eggs in one basket, I broke into tears and started pleading with Justin. I painted a picture, explaining it was the result of being too drunk, and my friends practically dragged me to the strip club. I tried every trick I could think of, but Justin just stared at me. Then he hit me with a question that made me shut up. Did your friends also push you to take him to hotels too? I was shocked. I came to a brutal realization. I had seriously messed up. There was no turning back. Maybe if I had owned up to the affair when I first saw the video, instead of spinning a yarn about it being a one-time thing, Justin might have considered forgiving me. But the look on his face made it crystal clear. Forgiveness wasn't on the table. He dropped a harsh ultimatum, 30 minutes to pack up and leave. The catch? I could only grab my phone and the clothes on my back. Everything else, he claimed, was his. Staring at the wreckage of my life, the reality hit hard. I depended on him for everything. In a raw admission, Justin confessed to setting up Marco's arrest, ensuring he'd serve time. He said it was a brutal consequence and a stern warning for anyone messing with someone else's marriage. Justin, when angry, was downright ruthless, making any attempt at talking pointless. I did what he asked, just left. The plan was to wait until he calmed down and then come back, beg him to reconsider. But that plan quickly went up in smoke. The moment I walked out, Justin decided to take things up a notch. He sent that damning video to everyone we knew, his folks, my folks, literally everyone. You can picture the joy on his parents' faces, finally thinking they were right about me being a gold digger. Now, broke and without a backup plan, I had to swallow my pride and turn to my disappointed parents, the same people I tried escaping by marrying into Justin's wealthy world. The irony hit hard. I used to depend on Justin for everything, and now that dependency was biting me back. And the video? Turns out my so-called friends were the culprits. On the night I thought no one cared about what I was doing with Marco, they were sneakily recording everything. What's even more messed up? They decided to send that video to Justin after our wedding. The timing didn't make much sense to me. Why wait till after the wedding? But at that point, I didn't care for explanations. Fueled by anger and betrayal, I cut them out of my life for wrecking my marriage. Marco was about to face trial for theft, but in the midst of my personal chaos, I didn't bother visiting him. I had more significant issues on my plate. Did I ever mention that I signed a prenup? Maybe not. I had signed a prenuptial agreement before marrying Justin, a mandatory condition set by his grandfather and parents. It was the one thing we couldn't contest, and that decision came back to haunt me during the divorce. Justin unleashed a legal storm that left me with nothing, absolutely nothing. The courtroom battle was brutal, and I lost custody of the kids. Justin absolutely destroyed me in court. I didn't even get custody of the kids. Because while in the courtroom, yes, the kids were present, with the way they were clinging to Justin, it was obvious they were very attached to him. And also, considering how dead broke I was, it was obvious the judge wouldn't give me the kids. Justin had a means to take care of the children. The judge granted me only weekend visits. We hadn't even been married for a year, and thanks to the prenup, I practically left the courtroom empty-handed. To add insult to injury, the judge didn't mince words about my infidelity with the bodyguard, further deepening my humiliation. Justin's strategic legal moves and the prenup combined to obliterate any hope I had of a fair settlement. The only positive outcome I got was that I didn't need to pay child support. So that's my tale of how I messed up my marriage for a fleeting moment of excitement. Justin never found it in himself to forgive me. Though I get weekend visits with the kids, it's crystal clear they favor their dad. Life feels like a reset. By putting my story out here, I hope someone learns a thing or two, steering clear of the mistakes and pitfalls that tripped me up. Thanks for lending an ear.